forget about that this is my son. Now we're talking about a product.
Yeah.
We're talking about a brand. We need to find a way to cooperate if you guys are interested. I'm Henrik Axelsen.
Previous episode we had Vega, and then so today Granddad decides to show up as well.
We're going through the whole family tree.
Who is Henrik Axelsen? What do you do?
Listen, this is not because I want to brag about my son. I'm proud of it, but now it's business.
So every contract that Viktor has had, you must have had negotiations 10, 15 years now. What are the biggest lessons that you can give us?
Viktor, one day we walked the street of where we lived. He said to me,
hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Average Not Average podcast. I am CK.
I'm Viktor Axelsen.
And I'm Henrik Axelsen.
So it's actually really incredible that we have you on the podcast today. Previous episode we had Vega on for the podcast recording for a little bit, and then so today Granddad decides to show up as well.
We're going through the whole family tree.
Exactly. So the next one.
I'm so proud to be the next one.
Well, so you're actually the official guest for the full episode, like the first full guest for the whole episode. So I think it's absolutely perfect that you're the first one with us. So I think I just wanted to start off. So for people that don't know, who is Henrik Axelsen? What do you do?
On top of that I'm a parent of Victor and Johanna. Then I actually started as I had a commercial company with my brother, and then hooked up to badminton many years ago. I can't even remember how many. And I played myself a bit and so on. And I played when I was young and so. So after that, Victor actually grew up and got more interested in badminton, and we just shared some of the things about it. And Victor played football too, and Victor's sister Johanna played badminton and so. So actually, it was the family sport itself. And then Victor, one day we walked the street of where we lived. He said to me, "Hey, Dad, if I'm gonna choose with either sports I would go to, it would be badminton, because for badminton it's only me, and I'm the one that win or lose. If I play a team sport, I still feel that the other guys won't do it as much as I do. So that's why that Victor chose at the age of 7 or 8, he chose to go all in for the badminton. And then after that, I joined the club, I joined the board, I joined whatever was needed for all the volunteers that we use for sport in Denmark. We have our very good club structure, and all the club structure is actually based on volunteers from the parents and some relationships around the clubs. And I joined the board there, and then it was all for fun. We had a hell of a lot of different good events in the club, and we drove the whole country around in our little dark Toyota. And Johanna and Victor was, we were sleeping out whenever Victor was playing some kind of tournament out there around in Denmark. We slept on the floor out in the changing rooms or whatever. And we had a blast there because it was just how you did it at that time. So that's about 15, 18 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then we started from there on, and it was just, it was great, because what it was all coming from the heart from all of us, and Victor's sister also joined. So it was kind of a small weekend trip that we did.
Yeah.
So that was great. That was actually the start of it.
Yeah. So, Victor, was it hard to be spending so much time with your dad on the road, especially when you're competing at that young age? Because I have friends who also did exactly the same thing, but none of them got to the level that you've got to in terms of success.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them were quite apprehensive, because it's hard, because there's your parents. Henrik has investing so much time and love and effort to take you all around the country, and sometimes if you're not playing well enough or good enough, in your opinion, how do you cope with that?
Actually, to me, when I think back, it hasn't really been that hard. Both my parents has been very supportive, and my dad, he drove us around, and as he said, there was no mobile phones back then, and you didn't, you were just together in the car. I had a lot of good talks back then, and I was very competitive from a young age, and I never really got paced by my parents. Um, Obviously, my dad had been more involved in everything around badminton from a young age, but I've never really been paced, or there's never really been, any bad feelings if I lost a match. It was, has been one time or something like that where, when I was a child, when there was an argument where, my dad thought that I could have played better and stuff like that, but there has been nothing really. And my mom has also been very supportive, but more, not really involved in the sport per se. And actually, for me, that has also been nice that, there hasn't really been any pressure. As long as I did my best, then it was fine. So as my dad says, those experiences traveling around, and it has always come from myself that I wanted to be the best. I have had so many good friends where we were playing men's doubles together, driving around the country. And then obviously pretty quick during my career, when I was around 10, 11 years old, it was evident that I had, quite a big talent. And that's the good thing about the badminton in Denmark, is that for the young kids, there is a pretty good structured way within the clubs and also the national sort of youth in order how to proceed. So it was, a very, very nice journey, but all those experiences sleeping on the, in the changing rooms, and my sister, with the little, the little cooler bag with the sandwiches and stuff like that. That's, obviously when you think about the difference compared to now, that's it's often the journey, even though it's a little bit of a cliche, right?
Yeah. But it must be fun during those times where you spend so much time together, and then you spend so much time with each other, winning and losing at the same time, and so it kind of builds that bond, I guess. But then as a young player, you had a reputation for a bit of temper on court, right? So Henrik, did that come from you, or was it all Viktor on his own?
I think a lot of people ask that question, but I think what I'm in for is more for playing sports, maybe me, and for the anger and eager to be better that comes from the mom. That could be it. So I think it's a good mix of it. So I think that's the way. But again, as Viktor said, what I remember the most of it was really great to be in that car, because as Viktor said, there were no iPhones at that time, so they could not run away. They have to talk. We have to share some things. We have to win. We have to lose.
Yeah.
And as I like you said, CK, about the winning or losing, I always said to the kids that losing is okay. It's no problem, but don't get mad more than 10, 15 minutes after you lose the game. Yeah. That's it. Because I have had friends around that actually have had kids that ruined the whole weekend if they lost on a Saturday morning.
Yep.
Then the whole weekend was all ruined. That's not fair for anybody.
The whole family.
So that's why we had that about the 15 minutes that you could be, out in the locker room and be sad and cry, whatever you did. But then you have to raise yourself again and go on.
And I think actually nowadays, I've only been to a few, youth tournaments and stuff like that, but also just being around the club when there is like youth practices, like the young kids, like there are some families, some parents who are way too involved, like sitting behind the court, watching the practices, even going in and trying to change stuff. And you can really see some of the parents are living through the kids on court and trying to put their own expectations onto the kid. And I don't think that's a healthy way, both professional and mentally for the kids. That's one of the things where, I believe has been very important for me, is that it has come from within with me. There hasn't been any pressure from the outside. There has been support and guidance, but there has never been any, a lot of pressure coming from the family side of things. And I think for the kids, I don't say that it's not good. Sometimes that you get pushed to training a bit, and but I don't think the pressure all the time. And the kids are clever, so they can feel that the parents are expecting them to do better than they're doing. And I don't think that's the way to go for at least for my own personal experience.
Yeah, because obviously from the book, I think this previous episode to this one, we discussed quite a bit about the book, and then within the book, you said that, for example, Henrik had no pressure completely. It all came from you directly, Viktor, and then you wanted to do it, and then your mom and dad fully supported that process, and then bought into that process. But for Henrik, it must be very hard. Like, one of the hardest things people say is letting go, trusting the process and believing in that process, right? Did you see very early signs that Viktor was 120% committed, he's all in, and then you just go, right, this kid will be fine? Obviously there'll be lumps and bumps and he'll hit walls occasionally, and then, you know, like, when did that come to you, that decision, go, okay, he'll be all right, I just need to wrap my arms around him occasionally, let him go?
I think maybe a half an hour after he was born.
Let's go.
Viktor has always been that eager to focus on something. If it was, play some cards with his sister, he wanted to win. If he wanted to learn how to bike, how to skate, how to this and that and so on. So he always had that kind of focus to be better and better and better and be the best. And that's nothing about, hey, listen, I'm the best. It's just for himself. So when he grew up, one day I saw one comment from Viktor himself, and he said, I think I'm my worst opponent. I think it comes from myself, not from the competitors or my family, or so. It all comes from myself. And that has a lot of times it has been hard to see that stuff.
Yep.
To see that Viktor wanted it so badly. So on one way, we are proud of it and say, wow, and all the other folks around, when we were out playing and in the young age, he said, oh, what do you give him for breakfast, or what's this and that? But
oatmeal.
On the other hand, it was a bit scary because we felt that he had so much focus. So could he actually be, as I say, a normal person, a nice person beside that? Because you have so much focus.
Yep. I mean,
it went well.
Yeah, I mean, to do extraordinary things, you have to have extraordinary sacrifice, I guess, or dedication. And so sometimes normal is not normal. What normal for you is not normal for a lot of people. What's normal for a lot of people might not be normal for you. So it's very subjective, isn't it, in this day and age? But needing to put in the hours required and the dedication and having the support together, I guess that meant a lot. So I want to talk about the financial side a little bit as well, because obviously driving to tournaments every single weekend, I see it with a lot of junior parents nowadays. It's a commitment, and it's a full season as well. It's not like one weekend here, next weekend there. It's week after week after week after week. You have club matches. How was it structured in that sense, where, was it like a Formula One story where all the drivers had, like Henrik, you have to do 2 jobs or something like that to make that happen? Or how did it work for the Axelsens?
I was actually so lucky. So I had my company with my brother, and in some of the early days when I went to the board in the club and so on, it was okay because that was free time and that was okay. But then I could still feel that then somebody called up, then another one called up, then I have to go to the club, then I have to go to a tournament and so on. And I could see at my brother's face that he was a bit tired of me. So actually, after Viktor actually made it in 2010 for the World Championship for youngsters, then I actually said to my brother, hey, I want to take 10 hours a week out, and then you could go on with the company and I still be here and I still have my office then, so, but I focus 10 hours a week on badminton.
Okay.
But I could see that it wouldn't work. So in 2012, I actually made an agreement with Viktor's mom and our lawyer, and then we signed the contract actually, so I could be part of Viktor's journey up at that stage. And I was actually at that time at our company, we didn't earn that much. We had a company, we had fun, we had a lot of great customers and so on, but we didn't, make a fortune. So that's why that I could tell my brother that, hey, I want to jump out for this. I want to try it. I want to see if it could actually last or it could be something. So I put a lot of effort and actually time and risk into it for maybe the first up until 2017. It was all, still had things to pay and still have bills to pay and so on, but we made it.
Yeah. Running a startup is hard, right? And you've been through that process. Victor, how old were you when you got your first contract?
I was pretty young when I got my first contract. I think we have it in Odense, where my dad lives, on the wall, where it was like 4 rackets, and two bags and stuff like that. With the brand Serve, it was called back then. It was a little local. It was a little local shop. It's still it's still alive to this day, but it was a ketchup. You might know Rasmus Skousen, who is CEO of RSL in Europe now, and we had a very good connection with Rasmus, and I was actually, a funny story, like, for a short period of time when I was young and I need to earn some money, I was cleaning in ketchup. Like, I was literally doing cleaning of the store back in the day, and so I also tried to learn how to string, but I never really got that far. I didn't have the patience. But that was the first contract. So up during my youth days, I had different contracts with Forza and with Serve in the start, and I actually had Nike also, combined with Serve. And then I was probably under 15, under 17. Yeah, and then when I was under 17, I got a contract with Head back then, where I started to earn very little money. But it made it possible for me to travel out to the international challenges. But in the contract back then, there was a clause where I was able to, renegotiate if I came into top 40 back then.
Okay.
And obviously, after winning the World Junior Championships, then now Yonex started to show interest, and this would give me the opportunity to, really come up to a higher level financially and travel on the Super Series tour and stuff. And I ended up making it, being able to renegotiate with everybody, even though it caused, an injury in my foot because I played so many tournaments, because I knew this would be a big opportunity for me. And then I signed with Yonex back in 2011, 2012, I think it was. And that really made a big difference from a financial side of things. I'm now in Vegas here. What up, Vega? Want to say
I
hi?
know that. I want, and another, as I see all that, I have some things that I
Jeg kommer ud efter, skat. Du må også gerne sidde her. Sorry.
No, you're right.
I have some, if I drop down in history, and I have a few spots that I still work with in my heart and in my head. And one of the ones was that I always like to tell the story about Victor signing with Head.
Yeah.
Because in Denmark we had an agency that had Head here, Cool Sport. And Klaus Ketterle, the CEO of the company, he actually made a meeting at my office where he brought the Head people from Austria up to my office.
Nice.
And that was a guy from the badminton part, and then was a guy from the tennis part. And then what actually are my life story is that I then suddenly when we were about to sign, I asked Thomas Bischoff, that there was a sponsor guy for the tennis department. I said to Thomas, hey, why are you guys having a fortune of money and we don't have anything in badminton? And he said, hey guys, you got 3 things you have to be sure of in the future. You got to have the Americans to be interested in badminton. You got to have some of the Asian players maybe out of their federation, so they won't be, in that box. And the next thing is that we have to have salespeople instead of badminton people in the sport. And that was in 2011, 12.
Yeah, earlier than that. It was around 2009 or something.
Yeah. Listen, what happened?
Yeah, I think like a combination of those two, like obviously having some people from badminton with the experience, but making sure that you really have people within the organization who has the sales, who know the very big side of business and stuff like that. I think that's very, very important, because as we also talked about in many of the other episodes, CK, that sport is business. And right now, I think, without being totally blunt, I believe and feel like the split between people with badminton experience is too big compared to people who actually know how to run a big business and how to grow a business. And yeah, it's a funny story to talk about, since it's so many years ago, and the structure and everything. Even though the money has become bigger in the sport, still it feels like we could maybe take those words too hard a little bit within the sport.
Yeah, but then I think in 2025, the commercial side of badminton is certainly quite lively in my opinion. Like seeing different competitors now trying to grow their brands very, very quickly, very, very fast, and then also seeing social media as a tool. It has been a tool for a lot of sports for a long time, but I guess in badminton it has just kind of become mainstream where there's potential, or brands start to see the potential of social media from athletes, which are one of their assets, right? And so having a wide reach is now incredibly important because that opens doors in new markets very, very fast. Instead of having to traditionally build your systems and logistics and supply chain over 5-10 years, you could literally cut through quite a lot quite quickly, knowing the right people at the right time, or the right people knowing you online, already having seen you online. So I think that's made the time shorter already. But then does that mean that made you Head's first world champion in badminton ever in 2010?
Probably. I don't know if Head has had any. Yeah, they probably didn't have any. What about Nave? No, from the UK. From the UK, didn't she play with Head?
Uh,
Nathan Robertson.
he was Carlton. Carlton.
I don't know.
Carlton.
He was Carlton. Yeah, that's right.
Anthony Clark might be Head, but then were they world champions? I thought.
Yeah, exactly. Anthony Clark was it. I'm not sure, but at least it was a big achievement for me, obviously, winning the World Junior Championships, and that basically changed both my beliefs inside that I could actually make it. Because if you look at the list of players who have been winning the World Junior Championships, many of them have done very well on the senior circuit, and also from a financial side of things, it gave some opportunities to get some sponsors on a certain level.
To me, it's all but to me, it's also great. If you look back in time, and you do when you get older and so on, and you're a dad, you're becoming a grand, and you look back in time and say, "Hey, I'm not an old man, but I still look at the story." So what I see at that time, that actually Viktor could persuade, or we saw people believing in Viktor, so they actually did something new, like Rasmus in Ketchup and Klaus in Coolsport. So they actually Viktor so much, so they persuade their brands that they were involved with to go into a partnership with Viktor, and that was great to see that. It was not just we do that for a lot of others, but they did it for Viktor. That was a great thing for me to see as a dad, because Viktor's Eager on court actually had a spin-off with these guys, and I was proud and I was thankful for that, because then we couldn't make it without these guys. So
yep. And then Henrik, you saw the opportunity to then exit your family business with your brother and be fully integrated with Viktor from the next steps forward. So since 2011, 2012, so every contract that Viktor has had, you must have had negotiations, so now looking back 10, 15 years now, what are the biggest lessons that you can give us, that you can tell us from your experience of negotiating these?
I think that it can maybe say it in one word, that could be trust. Trust your own family. Hopefully, believe in your setup. Believe in that what you do is that if you have your folks around, hopefully it might be the best setup. Even though in other sports they have big agents and whatever they have. But as long as you could be safe, because the thing is that maybe you won't have parents there or know how to sell, and I come from the commercial business, so I maybe knew about the marketing and so on. But if you don't have folks that come from that, you could still have them involved, because they would be the filter for a lot of things. And even though it in other sports go up to big business, I still see that a lot of good stories that folks being around, because they know a bit more. They could actually be that filter in between some very professional agents or whatever, and then your own kid. So I think that's the best lesson that we learned, and also that's the thing is that to me, I was just lucky that as I said before, we found these people that trusted Viktor from the start, and then after that, it's just purely business, because I know that a lot of sponsors have been nice to Viktor, but it's also business for them. That's how it is. And if you respect that it's, even though you're proud that you trust Viktor, and you also know it's business, I mean, that's from the start, there was a lot of people that did that from the heart, not for the business. And then after that, it grows and grows, and then it gets to business. You gotta have that respect for it.
Yeah, I think what's really important is that as an athlete, and also if, for example, your family is involved within the negotiations and everything, is that when you do these negotiations, like, first of all, it's very, very hard, especially in the start, before you have the experience, to sell yourself and see yourself as an actual product.
Yep.
And you have to separate yourself from your actually branding value when you try to sell yourself. You know yourself, CK, within your brand and your business, is that even though you represent, but the brand, even though it's you still have to see it as an actual product.
Yep.
And as an advertisement opportunity for these brands. And to find the fair.
The same when I sit around. Sorry. Yeah.
You go ahead.
Yeah. When I some years ago, I was a bit shy of talking about Viktor, and he was such a nice guy. He was such a this and that and a blah blah blah. But suddenly, when I walked in the room and I was talking to some new partners or whatever, then I said, "Listen, forget about that. This is my son. Now we're talking about a product.
Yeah. Yep.
We're talking about a brand. We need to find a way to cooperate if you guys are interested. But listen, this is not because I want to brag about my son. I'm proud of it, but now it's business."
Yep.
And that's years ago. I just started, whatever meeting it was, I started that way, because then you won't have that, as we call it here in Denmark, jantelov. You won't have people say, "Hey, listen to that's good. You're his dad, and you get money out of it," and blah blah blah. So we could focus on actually what was the main target for both of us.
The cut through, like dropping, I think setting the anchor. I think maybe the right term for it, like setting the anchor in the right position at the right time to have the correct conversations, because otherwise it's a lot of fluff. I guess you have to get through.
And I think one of the things that I'm the most proud of, more happy about, is that not only now obviously financially the sport is in a way better place, and we are also doing way better financially, but I think it's also due, like, I think my dad has a big part in that, is that if the brands and the people within the sport are used to paying X amount, in order to come up to an amount which is way bigger than that, you first have to break that bubble, and you have to move the needle so the brands are actually okay with paying more, because we believed very early on that badminton had a huge potential. You see the numbers, how many, and that was one of the things which was very frustrating for us, and what we have been using a lot of energy on is actually getting the numbers for the sport. How many people are watching, how is the broadcast, everything. And the federation, the BWF, is just not sharing that information with the players. So to actually go out and sell a product where you actually have to use so much energy, and it's very hard to figure out what is the actual value, and that we had to spend a lot of energy on trying with third parties, try to get some numbers, figure out how many people are actually watching and all that. And once we figured out the way to actually make the partners understand how much exposure you get from being on my shirt, my brand on social media and all that kind of thing, then you could really go out and say, "Hey, listen, this is actually fair." And the brands also had to be okay with paying more for the players. And now you also see the contracts growing. And the reason why that is because of, for example, Lin Dan, who also got out and got his own contract rather than under the federation, right, back in the day. And obviously it's Lin Dan, the GOAT, right? But he, people like like that and the players like that need to make those changes and need to be first movers, like I also did with Dubai, you can say, in some sense, and show the way to the other players that actually there's many ways to go if you want to go for it. And that's one of the things which also keeps me going and us going, is to break the limits and pave the way for the future players as well, also on the financial side of things.
Yeah.
And I think, again, as I mentioned, trust is very important. If you walk in to an agency or whatever, or if you work with your folks and whatever, you've got to have trust in that person, if it's your dad or agent, whatever, can actually earn their own money. That's what Viktor is saying, is that try to push up the limit of what is normal standard for badminton. There is no normal standard. We might be the bad guys in the room because we actually maybe got out and broke that bubble, because the thing is that badminton is actually in a bubble, and it's still in a bubble some way, because everybody around, hell of a lot of good guys, volunteers, BWF, whatever it is, there's a lot of good guys that had a good focus on the sport, but you don't have the focus on the business. So the thing is that if you focus a bit more on the business, as like Viktor says, we have all the numbers, we have all the media stuff and so on. Go out and tell them. Go out and tell your partners about how big it is, because that's what we did. I think what we did was we were very honest about what was actually in that chicken salad. There was a lot of chicken in the chicken salad, as I always say, because the thing is that we could actually stand up for the rights. We could stand up for the numbers, that how big the badminton is, and that's what we actually did, because we sometimes hear that the other players say, hey, I don't want to give away some of my contract. I don't want to give some percentage out. I don't want to this because I can do it on my own and so on. But nobody on this earth could focus on sport like badminton, which is a very single, mentally strong sport. You cannot focus on being businessman and sportsman. No way. Whoever is saying that's crap, because you cannot do so. So if you really want to make it, you got to have some people you trust and let them go for the business. And then later on, when you grow up, like Viktor is now, right, he could go into that part too, because he had that strength and then mentally strong to go in alongside with, for instance, Rasmus and I, and go on with the business, still being in the sport. But from the start, you got to be very, very very
committed,
acceptable. You got to accept that people around you help you.
And obviously, also, it's not everybody who has like parents who are interested, or many players can't find the balance of being, parent, son, daughter, and then the manager side of things. So in that case, and that's totally okay. Then there's also like bad examples of family trying to work together where money comes in, and then there's issues here and there. And we've been really fortunate that way to, that we could hit that balance. But then again, at least trying to find partners who you see as a part of your family, even though it's another company or another person who are helping you, but finding somebody who you can trust that way, that they have the best intentions, right?
Yep.
Because one thing is that sometimes if you get the wrong partners and you say yes to everything and the managers are only focusing on earning money, then you will also burn yourself out, and once again you will be back to the same issue with taking care of everything yourself, is that you will have too many things on your plate and you will simply burn out. So to strike that correct balance with your agent is very, very important, especially when you're young and you need to put in the hours and practice very seriously.
Yeah.
But we were also very lucky about some stuff, because we were very lucky. I was lucky that even though Viktor and Johannes' mom and I were divorced, we still have 100% support from her side too. That was one thing. And another thing was, I could still see at a very early stage that I was not able to have just a dad and son setup. I needed some good guys to support me, whatever it would be, about financial stuff, about legal stuff, about how your mindset should actually focus on a new partners, whatever. So that's why we actually board with good guys around. Someone that was our lawyers, that was our accountants, and so on. But it was also people that run business themselves. So all these guys know how to support us about, comment on this and say, hey, go this way or leave that out or whatever. So you can actually play some good kind of try to push them out on some things, what they actually mean about that case.
Yep.
So that's, I think, a lot of help for us.
Very early on, we knew that we had to outsource some of the task in regards to, the contractual side of things. Go through the contracts, make sure, from the all that kind of things that. And as my dad says, we've been very lucky that we had some people who are very, very good in their field, being accountant, lawyers, and stuff like that, who has helped us with everything and who are still sitting on my board to this day. And I think that's again with trust in your relationship, being able to have people who have been with you and who know you on a personal kind of level through the young days all the way up now, where it's the same person, but the size of the contracts and the decisions being made are of a different level. But they know you, they know what you can and cannot do, and they know your personality, and that is very, very important. So, and obviously new people come in also during the years where you get close relationships, and to make sure that you get second, third, fourth opinion from people around you who you trust is very, very important when you choose your partner. So you make sure that when you commit, because often in badminton it's 2, 3, even 5 years. So sometimes, even though it's probably a good contract now, you have to think ahead and say, hey, in 5 years, where would I, or in 3 years, if you suddenly hit, and you win a big tournament and you're, you're stuck basically, right? And tied to a contract. It's very, very important, especially in your younger days, to have the right, because some of agents, they just think, oh, then I'm set for 5 years.
Yep.
But you really have to make sure that you have people from the outside who are giving you, sharing those thoughts, so you in the end can take the right decision, right?
Yeah. So essentially, what you guys are saying from the lessons are, don't be shy to find the right experts to help you with the right things, because clearly we don't know everything within the world of business, and there's always things changing, right? With 2025, the ideas come so fast, the execution is incredibly complex. They might look simple because we're sitting here as a three talking about these things, but the execution is incredibly complex, and it requires many parts of stakeholders, left, right, and center, finding the right people at the right time. And again, it all comes down to trust in that sense. Without that trust that they are acting in your best interest, it's not okay. But then also similar times, like just summarizing, Victor, what you said. I don't know if you know baseball's massive superstar at the moment, Shohei Ohtani. He signed
the contract is crazy.
Yeah, $700 million over 10 years, but he chose to defer that. So at the start, he took very, very little. And again, I believe he was also thinking about the team, because I think every team has a salary cap, and he's like, look, if you cap my salary here, you then are free to get better players or whatever. But then come year 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that's when the real money comes in. And so he was also thinking that far, and he had conditions tied to that. So he must have had, and his agent is also not from Japan. His agent got him from Japan when he was already just a kid. So again, like you said,
nice.
It's people that they have worked with for a long time, but then the contracts just get bigger. Although he did have one of his translators steal his money fairly recently, so that's not good.
Oh, that's not so good.
You gotta, as an athlete, you gotta put that mindset into your own head that it costs money to earn money.
Yeah.
It costs you money to get that far, to get the best contracts and so on. And if you won't accept that, you won't make it. You won't make that much. Then, okay, that's a decision to make, to say, hey, I can do it myself, and that's it. But in our sport, we really have to learn the players that it costs money to earn money. And that means that if you look at that amount that Victor invested in his career, that's millions that he actually, that for, with merchandise and with me and with this and that and so on. But you gotta have that mindset as an athlete, that you want to invest in your own brand. Yep. Otherwise, you would just be part of the game.
Yeah, and I think that there's a saying. I think if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go with a team. And having the right team brings so
Yeah.
much value to the table. I think I recently gave an advice to someone, and they were saying, okay, the business is doing well, and then they're doing this much in terms of net profit. However, I said, look, have you got an expert to actually go look at that? Because if they cost 50,000 for this one piece of work, but they claim back or save you in terms of additional taxes by 500,000, you still make a net gain of 450. So it makes sense to get the experts to pour through it, make sure it's watertight, and then
Yeah.
you pay them
Yeah,
correctly,
exactly.
and then but you still make more, and then you can then reinvest in the projects that you want to, because it's essentially more, from the
Yeah,
net pot.
exactly.
Okay, so I want to hear about situations that have gone wrong, because clearly to get to the team that you have now, and also people that have joined along the way, what happens when you found out or you realize that, oh crap, we've made this wrong decision? What happens then? How does it get resolved? How does it start to clear up itself up?
I think I always discuss things with the board. I might send if we get an offer from somebody, I might send it out to the board and so on. But I always say that Victor is the final person to take the decision, either if the amount is what it is or the terms or whatever it is. Victor is still the one. So actually, it's based again on trust. It's based on whatever is needed to discuss with the new partner, or to feel free to argue with them or so on. And I think we have a lot of talks about which way to go and what to level up for the amount. But we are, as I see it, maybe you can have somebody else, but I think we're very reasonable in how we handle whatever comes in. We always say, whatever comes in, we cannot do that now, but we started out saying to everybody, even though it was small stuff or whatever it was, I would always go out, take a cup of coffee, and what we say a Danish brunsviger, to meet people in the eye and discuss things, tell them about our project, be honest about the amounts and so on. And if we couldn't agree on anything, hey, listen,
It's okay.
thank you for calling up or argue
Yeah.
to get in contact, and that was it.
I think we actually have had a very few times where it has gone very wrong. We have been unfortunate, especially, I had a small break from Yonex back in 2013 with a big brand,
Adidas.
where the office, or the sub company or whatever you call it, they closed down and went bankrupt, and my contract basically went with it, where there was quite a bit of money on the line, where that was very unfortunate. And I just bought an apartment back then, and we had to fight a lot in order to get the money they owed us. And in the end, it luckily worked out, and I was able to get a contract with Yonex, and the rest is history, right? But in terms of choosing wrong partners, actually, we have had very few times where it has gone wrong, simply because we have had a lot of good people around us. And there has been chances where we've taken, for example, with startups and stuff like that, where we have been involved and it has led out to nothing. But again, sometimes you also have to take a risk, and
You have to be in it to win it.
that's just how it is. Sometimes it will be great, and sometimes it will fail, and then you will learn a lot. Obviously, just make sure that when you invest in something, or if you take a chance, that you are not taking such a huge risk that it can be very, it can ruin you financially or professionally. And then I think risk is very important, because you have to figure out the way you want to go.
100%. So, but then, so in the world of badminton, obviously now, if you look at the top elite players, we also start to see a few combinations where family are representing the players at the moment. So obviously, Henrik, you represent Victor in many of the commercial matters. I believe Zija and his sister is also one, and I think maybe Kodai and his dad could be another one as well. Do you, as a three, for example, do you connect with each other and say, like go out to dinner, have coffee, talk about some of the controversies or interesting stories that you guys have? Do you ever connect?
Not really, actually. we don't like. Obviously, there is a language barrier with in terms of Kodai and his that we are friendly and stuff like that, and we say hi, but we haven't really connected on that level. The structures of the federations and how they do is very, very different.
Yeah.
Obviously, it would be interesting to hear about the journey and stuff like that. In regards to Lisija and his sister, I when I meet them, I speak with them. We have had a coffee on numerous occasions, but again, it's a different. From a cultural side of things, also, it's very, very different how the federations are how they see things. We have been very focused on going the right way for me and for us. And we're always willing to take a coffee or speak with people if they reach out. But surprisingly few people are actually reaching out for help and talks about this, which is, obviously also because maybe people, they are maybe a little bit shy sometimes to ask for advice.
Yes.
Where
it's a cultural thing.
That's something that it's a cultural thing, I believe, and you probably know as well. You being Malaysian, also CK, and knows both sides of the the world quite good.
Yep. So I think it's 100% a cultural thing.
Yeah.
Sorry, Henrik,
I think
you
the
go.
badminton is on the right. Badminton is on the right track, and it will never make it in Viktor's career itself. But I think it's on the right track. We still have a lot of, ghosts to come around and so on. I think we have a lot of good opportunities because, as I said before, we have the value of the sport, we have the media and so on, so we could still, support whatever player they want to go out and tell about it. But it's also about the product. It's also about that I was lucky to have a good product in Viktor itself, as I speak about. And everybody is a good product if they can focus and if they can make it and so on. And also it's about winning, but it's also about having some partners that trust you for your journey and so on. But the most important thing is that we have to, from every country, every federation, whatever, they all have to open up and be more loose about thinking business. So if they would just still be about a sanction and this and that and so on, and put a lot of things on and tie the players' hands, then we won't make it. So it's all about freedom, if
letting
you
go.
can say so. Yeah, it is actually about if you should be very hard on your argument, it's that we still have the slavery, and you got to get that free. Otherwise, we won't make it, because, as I said, we're on the right track. We have all the numbers that people are needed to argue about it, but if you just still bump your head on top on a lot of
regulations,
rules
and regulations, then it's pretty bad.
Yeah, but then so now, for example, we are starting to see more and more players are not head to toe in terms of in terms of equipment suppliers, right? So, like, for example, Sindhu is probably one of the best cases here. She's got Puma head to toe equipment. Playing equipment is Yonex. But then, that kind of paved the way. Japan, Kodai, so obviously national team playing tournaments, he has to wear Yonex, but clearly he's a Viktor player in terms of equipment. Zija is another case, almost identical to you, Viktor, in that sense, where he's out of the federation, got a little bit of a sanction. The what's it called? The backlash was too great. They eased it down. He's back playing again. That's good. Now, for example, this week it was announced Viktor, well, the brand has signed Team Korea's some of their biggest stars already. So, like, when we're recording this, where we've got like Lee So-hee, Pek Hana, as well as Sim Yoo-jin announced already, and this is a good direction overall in terms for players.
It's all good.
I
agree. It's all good, but it's very important is that it's going to be a professional setup, whatever these players are doing. Otherwise, it's going to be the brands that's going to be the one sitting and go for it. It's going to be a good mix of the brands that comes into badminton, the players, and the player setup around them, and then another mindset from the federations.
But
If we can mix that up in some way, we're going to make it.
yeah, I think it's very good, first of all, that for example, the Korean Federation, that they're able to get their own sponsors, still being within the federation, I guess, right?
Now this is a new thing. This is a new thing, right?
Yeah, but that's
more-
that. Yeah, that I think that's amazing. It's great. As I see, I have never said that the federations are bad, and we all have to be independent. Not at all. Independent players and federation can coexist and even have a good relationship, I believe. It's just about opening up from both sides and making sure that the regulations and to the players is so strict that it's impossible to build a personal brand, and make a decent living. I know Paul Erik Høyer, he said now that he unfortunately, retired from the world of badminton, that he wanted to make badminton players millionaires, right? And I believe now that the federations are opening up and that you can get personal contracts, that's obviously the most important step, ever made, in order to make a living. Because from the prize money, even though it's growing and stuff like that, unless you win absolutely everything on the tour, you don't make
enough.
a good living.
Yeah.
You don't make enough that you can, retire and then live for a few years afterwards, without thinking about anything. And that should be the way with a sport with these numbers, with this exposure. It should be possible for players to make great money within the sport because of their brands, if they build it up to be attractive to the big partners. And talking about other brands coming into the sport like Victor 100 and the other brands, I think it's great to have healthy competition within the sport.
Yep.
Because it pushes the limits to what the players can negotiate and what they can get out of the contract. So I think it's fantastic for the sport that we have a lot of brands investing and see the potential of badminton.
So Henrik, do you?
But we have to go a little bit back and say, we talk a lot about the bad things about the federation and so on. Even though we have our struggle with the Danish Federation, we still have to say that as a Danish player, you're actually pretty lucky to be in Denmark, because you are able to go out and sign with your own sponsors for your own tournaments. Even though you have somewhere, if you play teams, whatever it is, for World Championships, Thomas Cup and so, but all the other tournaments, you can still go out and make it with your own sponsors.
Yes.
But again, then the support from the federation is a lot less than it would be from China, whatever it is, and so on.
Yep.
So the setup about money-wise, it's very good coming from the Danish side of it, if you look at it.
Yeah, I also think I would like to support that point, that from a, brand building, financial independent side of perspective, in terms of federations, the Danish Federation are actually doing a great job and should be, you can't say a role model, but they should be,
as much as they can.
someone other federations look to and see how it can actually work. And as my dad said, obviously we have our
your own setup
struggles or discussions with the federation, but still, the young players are able to make their own. They're still able to go play some leagues here and there, and striking that balance is very hard for the federations. But also it's very important financially for the players. So it's great that it is that way, and in that sense, we're very lucky to be under the Danish Federation.
Yeah. Well, so just talking about the Danish Federation, I was messaging someone because I was going through the World Championships 2025 Paris's qualification list. So they've published who's qualified, who's not qualified. But for women's doubles this year, I believe Denmark is not sending a single pair. Is that correct? Because like the number one and number two, number three pairs, they've been declined. Is there a reason why? Is it because they're not part of the system? So I think is Julie Finn and Mai. Is that because they're not part of the system?
I think if I'm not mistaken, I think that they retired now from international badminton.
Is it?
I have CK. No, it's yeah. And to be honest, I have no idea, CK. we can, no. So we better not comment on why it is, but you can try to talk or send an email to the federation.
Yeah, because yeah,
Yeah.
it's been quite unique situation, like to see like Danish players like being decline, and then you go into other discipline, you also see like decline. But yeah, I get it. It's a complex situation, and it's a fluid one as well. Okay, so
The people, no matter if they're in the federation or they're not, if they're deserving of being at the World Championships, they should obviously be at the World Championships. So the best players should go. In this situation, I don't have enough information to comment on anything, to be honest. I don't think it's so controversial this time around, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, so I was sent an article, obviously in Danish, from 2021, regarding that matter, and then I translated it on Google, and then yeah, I think there was some explanations there, but then
Yeah. There was quite a bit of controversial with my and Julie back then in terms of getting picked for the World Championships. I think it was.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, so that was difficult. Okay, so going back to our original conversation, Henrik, what does a day look like for you? I know you're on holiday at the moment, and so we're very thankful that you're giving us a lot of time. Actually, where are you at the moment?
No problem. Yeah. I'm at Crete.
Okay. So still same time zone as Victor? Okay. So what does a day look like for
No,
you?
it's 1 hour different from Denmark to here. Yeah.
So you're 1 hour ahead.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But how does a day look when you're at home?
I mean, I always tease about when our board, if someone calls up and say, hey, when you call me up at night and they say, well, sorry, is the office open or what? So that's actually how I work. Normally, I take it day by day, and I say I can also see at the moment right now that we are looking into another setup from now on, because there's a lot of new things coming on. Viktor Axelsen started up their business and so on and so on. So we are actually looking into kind of a not retirement. I hate that word, but it's still kind of going on another direction now, because the guys can help themselves.
Yep.
So what we're doing is that I've been working. And sometimes people say, hey, you don't do anything, you just sit around. But then one of my friends come from the board says, hey, listen, if you make an email to whatever partner you guys have, then you've been struggling in your head for maybe 2 hours or 3 hours what to write. And I said, hey, listen, it's not that bad. But then one day I actually look back and say, hey, maybe he's right, because one thing is what is working. Like when you work as I do, because I can work, sometimes I could maybe, wake up middle of the night, write something down on a piece of paper because I got to remember this and that. But it's been a pleasure and a brilliant way to work, because I could actually plan the day myself, because you could work from everywhere.
Yeah.
So even though I could be here and I could work and so on, and that's a great opportunity.
Yeah.
But normally I would say, what is that business and what is brand business? So sometimes we tease each other about that, because about paying bills and so on. Is that also a VA business or a that business and so on? So actually my day is very not structured at all. So that's why I could jump in and out of things and so on. So that's a great way to work. And I like that, because I always work that way. I always been my own boss. So that's why I had a struggle about having the company back then with my brother, because I could feel that I like to work on my own, and I like to be the one in taking all the decisions, what to do, what not to do, and so on. So that's been a brilliant way to work that way.
Yeah, I think having freedom and actual freedom and decision-making power is actually a really, really hard thing to come by nowadays, because that I guess that keeps us happy. And then, but what technology has helped us is actually being able to, like you said, work anywhere in the world. I mean, like I'm in a hotel room in Singapore, Victor, you're in Denmark, and then Henrik, you're in Crete, and we're here talking about business. So business is going okay. Different times.
But it also gives you a lot of it gives you a lot of opportunities to do stuff like this today. But it also gives you some kind of a little bit of stress if you're always on the job, meant that way, when is free time and when is working time. So now you guys are young, so you don't care about it. But when you get older, you sometimes have to say, okay, now you don't empty your emails. Now you don't do this and that and so on. And so I feel sometimes I'm always there, even though it might be a vacation or whatever.
Yeah.
So the older you get, the more you have to focus on this. Otherwise, I think some people could actually be kind of not focused because they are always doing this and that and so on. So you don't focus on the target.
Prioritize.
But what I'm lucky of is, I think, yeah, my way of working might be that I'm not the one that if you make an offer for one or you have to write something or whatever, that it takes you hours to make it. I might be the one that goes around working in my head, and then it takes me 10 minutes to write. And sometimes I send it on to Viktor if Viktor wants to comment or anything, because I might be the one working from my heart instead of more from my brain.
Yeah.
And that gives me some kind of
bias
kicks from somebody, but still, but it's still my way to work. And again, that could be also a barrier from whatever country to country and so on. But it's still, as I see it from our perspective, is that whatever we have been doing for Viktor's brand over the years, I think the best way to tell about it is that when you go in to work with Viktor, you get Viktor. You don't get, some kind of snobby hobby, whatever person, or you don't get any, hidden agenda, whatever. You just get Viktor, and you get the package around him.
Yeah, no,
I think that the most important thing for me has always been that if you try to take on a persona when it comes to like being the badminton player or being the brand or whatever, then you will waste so much energy in trying to pretend that you're somebody you're not. So for me, I've always just been Viktor and trying to grow the brand and also seeing the brand building as a part of my job. Obviously also with inspiration from my dad and stuff like that, but investing in the brand, making sure that, with the Mandarin, with everything around the social media, the YouTube, the everything, making sure that I can be just as good as I am the court. I want to optimize as much as I possibly can, being a good brand as well. And that is also something where it requires practice. Even though, and learning from you also, CK, in terms of the podcast, the first one we did, it was my performance, it was a lot of and stuff like that, but learning how to speak probably and how to,
articulate.
How to do this kind of media, it's all a practice, also being a brand, right?
Yeah, 100%. And actually, I think the impact of the podcast, whilst we're still not even 10 episodes in, has been pretty good. It has been very positive. Obviously, a lot of people give me feedback as well, and then I pass that feedback on to you, and then we both work on that together. And I think because this is a partnership in many ways. Yeah, we're both learning, we're both growing, and it's also quite good to see people wanting to come on. Like we have,
it's great.
We have players, we have coaches that want to come on, and so it tells us that we're doing okay as a podcast brand. It tells us we're doing great, we're doing good because we're sharing information where normally people don't have access to. I mean, just this week at the Open, I had someone stop me to say the podcast has made them realize how much they love badminton, and they have never been able to get information like this at this level ever. And so it's because they're like, you both carry insights from very different perspective because of your experiences, but you can then condense it and be honest and transparent about it. And so I was like, thank you so much for the feedback. I will pass this on to the rest of the team because the team works very hard for this. And you give us so much time all the time to actually make this happen because it's not easy to find that kind of time in your schedule. So yeah, we're really appreciative of it.
No, I think it's great. And I think also it would be absolutely amazing also to get somebody from the federations or BWF even to come on.
I'm working on that.
Yeah, and have a discussion, about, because also hearing, again, one of the things that we've been talking a lot about, the gap between the players and BWF, it has to go through the federations all the time. So if you were able to get a talk with somebody from the BWF here on this media, being an open conversation, that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I've actually literally asked that question.
So if you're listening in Kuala Lumpur right now at BWF, we would love to have a loose talk and just talk about badminton. It would be absolutely amazing.
No judgment. Absolutely no judgment.
No. It would just be, again, it will be so interesting for everybody to you
to
know,
hear the perspective
to be
from
able
their
to do
side.
that.
Because
there's always two sides of a story, right? And one thing that
Exactly.
we're sitting around here saying, why didn't he do this? Why didn't he do this?
yeah,
Of course, they have their ways to go and their targets and so on. So of course, there's a lot of other reason why the sport didn't go our way.
But again,
we do
No.
these things our way and try to convince others to go maybe not the same direction, but still being open-minded to have the guts to go for it.
But I think everybody, and also, you know, when you talk about the federation, like, we all want the best for the sport. We all want, you know, to go as far as we possibly can. And a lot of good things is happening within the sport. But, you know, being closer to each other, I think that would be amazing. Yeah, let's see how everything evolves, including the podcast and the world of badminton. And I guess we are already going over time now. Sorry, CK.
yeah, no, we're literally 4 minutes over an hour. But yeah, no, I think this
Good.
episode for me, I've learned a lot. Thank you, Henrik. Thank you, Victor. You know, for always giving us so much time.
Sorry, we talked a lot, CK.
No,
we
it's
talked a
good.
lot.
I mean, you're the
Okay.
experts here. Like, I'm supposed to listen to you guys talk.
It was a bit of free time for you, CK. You didn't have to come on with a lot of questions because we could find the answers ourselves.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good for me. But then, yeah, like, hopefully we can get you on for another one next time in the future, because I'm sure we will get a lot of questions from fans, from, you know, businesses, stakeholders. Yeah, but we want to have more of these. And then, so welcome, Henrik. You are the first full episode guest.
Yeah.
Thank you, CK, and thank you for the good questions and for navigating the conversation.
No, absolute pleasure. Okay.
For keeping us on track.
No, absolute pleasure. Okay, thank you so much. Enjoy the holiday, Henrik. Enjoy Denmark, Victor.
See you around.
See you around.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
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 Bye. But nobody on this earth could focus on sport like badminton. You cannot focus on being businessman and sportsman. No way. So if you really want to make it, you gotta have some people you trust and let them go for the business.